Look, anybody who's a serious Christian loves the Scriptures, is moved by the Scriptures, moved to tears, this kind of devotion. So, I mean, we find often in this world that we have to defend the authority of the Scriptures. We have to demonstrate the provenance of the Scriptures to show that the texts are legit, and we can trace them back to that generation. Well, in order to show that the Scriptures have that legitimacy, we have to talk a little bit about that world where the Scriptures arose. We have to understand the historical context of the text we revere as sacred. That's the only way we can understand what those words mean in Scripture. We have to understand those words in their historical context. They're not just floating free out there. They had their own culture. They had their own trappings. So we have to understand that. And the fathers are witnesses to that world. They're reliable witnesses to that world because they venerated the Scriptures the same way every serious Christian does today. They valued them. They believed in the authority of Scripture the way we believe in the authority of Scripture today. And so they talked about the Scriptures. They savored the Scriptures. They meditated on the Scriptures. They preached the Scriptures. They interpreted the Scriptures. They loved the Scriptures. And we can look back on what they said about the Scriptures in 67 A.D., in 107 A.D., and see that consistency. And we can learn so much seeing the Scriptures, reading the Scriptures with first century eyes, the way the apostles did, the way the apostles wrote them. That's a powerful tool placed in the hands of any serious Christian today. Reading the Fathers opens our eyes to the Scriptures in new ways, exciting ways. I have a lot of friends who are former Protestant pastors, okay? And they were never kind of wishy-washy, lukewarm types, When they were Protestant pastors, they were very serious, theologically formed at the best schools and so on. And so many of them had this moment where they were reading the earliest fathers, the fathers of the first century and second century, the ones we call the apostolic fathers, because most of them quite likely knew the apostles and received the faith from the apostles themselves. They would read them and they'd notice a lot that was familiar. One, as I said, was the veneration they had for Scripture itself, okay? There was that. The other thing that was familiar to them was the kind of turmoil that was there in the churches in the ancient world. One believer setting himself against another, and all of these terrible things they had to deal with, scandals, immorality. First generation, this is already a problem in your parish, in your church. So they recognized a lot that was familiar from their own church life. But then they started to see things that were unfamiliar. There were clear structures of authority, and they're threefold, bishop, priest, deacon. That looks familiar, but not from my church. It looks like the Catholic Church down the road. And then they started noticing that these early fathers emphasized the sacraments of the church, the rites of the church, the liturgy of the church, and they talked in a sacrificial way about these things. They used the terminology of sacrifice from the temple in Jerusalem. So all of those terms were familiar, but not in their use in a Christian church. So when they started to think about these local churches, whether in Antioch or Smyrna or Rome, they started to think, wow, that looks like the Catholic parish down the road. For all its troubles, but for all its sacraments too, for all its authority, for all its life.